I know March 18th. You better get them in because we got those play-in games that start tonight, and you got to have your stuff turned in or it's not live. So I'm going to get mine turned in. I hadn't done it yet. I'm gonna say here shortly who I think the final four teams will be. But
we should have asked AI. Maybe we would have gotten. Maybe we got a better prediction.
Yeah, well, a lot of schools are starting to realize kids aren't doing their homework anymore, but AI is.
Yeah.
So I think AI is going to die a horrible death in a lot of ways because of that. And humans have to program the computers anyway. We got Mitch Davis. He was there for every game last week, and
that happened to me last week.
yeah. And Mitch Davis was out last week at every tournament game. He was on there. We're going to have him, Yancey Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline, and we're going to have Rodney Orr, Tider, Insider. So let's do this. Get pen and paper handy, smash the bottom right-hand corner, and hit the subscribe button to YouTube, and we'll be right back. We're going to be talking SEC, college basketball, and how you can send Christmas gifts to the people on that selection committee. Be right back.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right. Hey, let's say this. Mitch, you have got to be one of somebody's got the jazz music on in the background.
That's my Mitch music.
Okay. I didn't know.
That's his intro music, man.
Well, no, you want Mitch music. What you need is James Browne, hardest working man in the media. He was at every game, every press conference last week. Multiple texts from Sidelines fans around the country. It was pretty cool. I saw Mitch asking questions, and you were everywhere. Mitch Davis, the MitchDavisShow.com. By the way, and I agree. You got to play the team's got to play who they got to play, but fans and people in the media have every right in the world to raise hell. But Martin Newton and Greg Byrne and Charles McClellan, the commissioner of the Southwest Conference, all these people, what the hell? When you look at the ratings, the net ratings, the Ken Palm and all that stuff that they shove in our face every single minute of every ESPN broadcast, what does that stuff mean if Auburn is the lowest ranked fourth seed and Alabama a 4 seed and UAB all have to go to Spokane? What about letting the fans participate in the games? This committee and this pod system and all, Mitch, make sense out of it. And by the way, good morning and welcome to Sidelines.
Hi, Mitch.
Good morning, guys. I apologize I couldn't come on yesterday. I was exhausted. I stayed in bed till 9 o'clock and hopped on work at 9:30. Yesterday was a drag. So Nashville, I didn't go out and party at all. I just was.
You didn't have time.
No, cranking out content, covering that magical Mississippi State run, and it was a busy weekend, and we're going to repeat it all over again. I'm heading to Memphis to cover Texas A&M and Clemson in the Memphis Pod or the Memphis Regional. A little disappointed with the selection committee. I don't understand it. I mean, looking at these brackets and looking where they're sending teams, Memphis, for example, is not going to sell any tickets for Texas A&M, Houston. Baylor might travel just a little bit. New Mexico might bring some fans. But, I mean, they had the opportunity to put Mississippi State. If they were going to put an 8-9 here, the opportunity to put Mississippi State here. If they were going to put a 3 seed, they had the opportunity to either put Kentucky, Auburn, or even Alabama here. If they were going to put a 1 seed, Houston makes sense. I get Houston because geographically. But why are they sending Baylor, Why are they sending Texas A&M? Why are they sending Clemson? Clemson could have been playing a short drive over in Charlotte, North Carolina. Clemson is a 5 seed. They could have been replacing the 5 seed in the Charlotte, North Carolina regional, and it just doesn't really make sense. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And if our biggest thing is to grow the game and to reach audiences and sell tickets and make money, then why is guys like Greg Byrne and all these other guys, sending all the Alabama schools out, 20 hours away to play in Spokane, Washington, where they could have easily played in either Memphis or Charlotte, or even like Pittsburgh. They could have played in Pittsburgh, which is a lot shorter drive, a doable drive for Auburn, Alabama, Stanford fans, even UAB fans. So I don't get it. I don't understand how the brackets work. I guess somebody with a lot more knowledge of the situation can maybe inform me of this, because I don't get it. I really, truthfully, do not understand. And then they got it right with North Carolina and Tennessee. They sent them to Charlotte, but again, Tennessee could have easily played in Memphis and been the 2 seed here in Memphis and sold, bukus of tickets with all the Tennessee fans in the Memphis metropolitan area and around West Tennessee. They could have sold bukus of tickets. But instead, man, Memphis, I'm looking at the ticket resale thing. The tickets keep on dropping because it's just not a draw. I mean, we got all the Texas schools. They're going to be playing in Memphis. And don't get me wrong, I'm very excited about the opportunity to cover the NCAA tournament. This will be my second March Madness that I get to cover in person. That's awesome. But I do wish that the committee would have done cities like Memphis and Charlotte and all those places a little bit of more of a favor, because a lot of these cities, when they get to host the NCAA tournament, this is a once every 5-10 year rotation. And so these cities, man, they get that 1 weekend of tourism dollars. And you can't tell me that Memphis businesses are excited to get the Aggies. I was in Nashville. Texas A&M maybe had 200 fans in Nashville.
They don't care about basketball. They don't.
And that's the same way, Baylor fans, I'm hoping they're going to travel. But, I mean, Clemson fans, I didn't even know Clemson had basketball fans. I mean, I'll be honest, no disrespect to the program because what they've done out there, and they've built a great program. But no disrespect to the program. But I didn't know that their fans actually even knew they had a basketball program. So I don't get it. I don't understand it. I'm a little ticked off that they would have screwed Auburn and Alabama the way they did, and also screwed the city of Memphis. I mean, they want to have Memphis host these great events, and Memphis is a hell of a city to host these places, these type of things. But then they screw them over. I mean, the American Athletic 2-3 years ago decided to pull the conference tournament out of Memphis, and now they went to Dickies Arena, and I don't know if you guys saw the crowds this weekend.
There were no crowds.
Yeah, I mean, after Memphis got beat, there was nobody left. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get why you want to screw over certain cities, but hey, that's where we are with the NCAA.
I'll tell you what it is. It's this crap that goes on in our society. We want everybody to feel good. We don't want anybody to be left out. And it's a bunch of participation trophy stuff. Charles McClellan, the commissioner of the Southwest Athletic Conference. I mean, what Greg Byrne. These guys are all from the South. Martin Newton is the AD at Samford, okay? And you send all these programs, and Samford goes to Salt Lake City. What in the hell are you thinking? And then you send, a 5 seed Clemson gets to go to Charlotte?
No, they get to come to Memphis.
I mean, I'm sorry, coming to Memphis,
yeah.
Because I was going to say, Charlotte is, 35 miles from the South Carolina border. I was just over there last 5 weeks ago. And North Carolina, of course they're going to get there. Look, if you can't pick up on what goes on ESPN, the Brahmin, the Chosen Ones, the Back Bay of Boston, Winthorpe, it's a bunch of politics. It's a bunch of hacks up there that have an agenda and a narrative, and they're going to drive it down your throat at all costs. And I'm going to tell you something. You look at ESPN, you look at CBS and Fox in college football. They've always got to have the minders from Ohio State. It's like anyone who travels to China or any other Russia, you've got minders around you watching every move you make. That's exactly what goes on in basketball. And the fans of Auburn and Alabama and Samford and UAB and a lot of other fan base got screwed. Okay? Now, UConn, Bobby Hurley, how many times can he tell us he's got the greatest team in America? You know what? And nobody's going to challenge him on it because He's part of the East Coast elite media establishment. And I'm mad as hell. And I mean, it is. It's ridiculous. And fans should pick up. You know what? They're going to show how angry they are because there are going to be a lot of fans disguised as empty seats at these stupid regionals where they want Bruce Pearl, he's right. Auburn got screwed because they went to Birmingham last year as a 9 seed. But look at Legacy Arena last year. They packed it in. Birmingham is one of the greatest cities in America when it comes to hosting a big-time event.
Yeah.
And you're going to Spokane, Washington. I mean, Auburn fans are all over the country. There's a lot in the Silicon Valley. And Kevin Skarbinski was on here yesterday. You can get tickets round trip for $800-900 from Birmingham, but their fans going to be going from all over the country. This committee is a joke, and they're why the NCAA needs to be evaporated. They are combat ineffective, and they're clueless. The committee didn't watch the tournaments on Sunday. They didn't. They lied. They did not, because that stuff matters. If they're going to play the games, make them matter.
Yeah, and Rob, the thing about it, I know we're going to talk about basketball. I do want to bring up one more thing about the selection committee. There's them putting Kentucky as a 3 seed playing in Pittsburgh. I mean, am I watching the same Kentucky team that the committee is? This is a Kentucky team that basically, got blown off the map by Texas A&M because Texas A&M outplayed them on defense. They outplayed them on offense. Buzz Williams outcoached John Calipari. I was there in Nashville. I was literally sitting across from the Texas A&M bench watching the game. Kentucky gets a 3 seed. They get to play 4.5, 5 hours from campus in Pittsburgh against a very favorable draw. But really, truthfully, guys, I think Kentucky's going to lose in the second round to NC State. NC State is on a terror right now. And I'd hate to play those guys, man. They're fun to watch. In Mississippi State, I want to talk about Mississippi State. They would play North Carolina. They have to get by Tom Izzo first, and I think this is not the Michigan State where they're big, they're physical. This is a Michigan State team that has struggled to find an identity all season. They don't really have a set way of playing basketball. We're going to write that in an article sometime today or tomorrow. So this Mississippi State team, they get by Tom Izzo. They match up well against North Carolina. North Carolina plays very similar to what Tennessee does. They like to get out like to score in transition. They like to fast break. They like to play fast. They're not a very overly physical team. They've got Bascott down low, who's not a very physical big. I think Mississippi State matches up well with North Carolina with DJ and Cameron Matthews and Jimmy Bell. I think that those guys match up with the Carolina bigs. The guard play, you got to go in favor of Josh Hubbard, Shaquille Moore. Then you've also got Tolu Smith down low. So Mississippi State has the advantage until they reach, the Sweet 16, Elite 8 level where they're possibly playing Alabama. So a lot of excitement for Mississippi State right now. A lot of excitement for Florida. I think Florida's coming into this tournament with a whole lot of momentum. I think they're going to be playing for the kids.
I like their schedule.
I don't either. But they're playing with a lot of momentum. They're playing for the kid who got hurt in the Auburn game. I haven't heard exactly what was. I think the bone kind of protruded from the skin a little bit. So that was
it's called a compound fracture there, Elvis.
Yeah,
that was bad. That was bad. But I think they said the surgery last night. I asked your dad last night on the Buddy Martin show. Catch it weeknights 9 p.m. live on YouTube. And I asked, and friends and Buddy, and I think Shane Matthews was on then. I think he had a good surgery. It went well. And now the rehab process will start. If anybody ever cheers when a player goes down injured, I don't care what team it is, you're sick in the head. Okay. But I don't think anybody did. But I think that those two teams, there's a lot of respect. You got Todd Golden, who's very close to Bruce Pearl. I'm pulling for the SEC, but I'm harder on Auburn than I am any other school. But this time I'm going to defend them. But you know what they need to do? You know what your best revenge is? Success. And stick it in the committee's face. But they need to be excoriated, raked over the coals, ridiculed, humiliated, lambasted, and all their email addresses. Let people start carpet bombing them, especially when you're paying. Look, if you're taking your family out there to Spokane to see Auburn, let's say you're from Atlanta or you're from Memphis, you're going to spend $5,000 or $7,000.
Yeah,
it would have been nice to be able to come. Hey, I think in Memphis, we can put on one hell of an event. I know Kevin Kane, the head of the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Kevin is a machine. He will put stuff. He will make it happen. You know that. Memphis would love to have had Auburn or Alabama or Samford or UAB. I mean, it would have been a draw. A&M doesn't. You're right. Doesn't care about basketball. They just don't.
Yeah.
Nothing against Texas A&M. It's a great school. They don't care, and they've got a tough group of players.
Yeah, and it's not a knock on Texas A&M. I'm excited to play them. Texas A&M has possibly one of the greatest bands in the SEC. They are some of the most fun people to be around. Guys, I talked to them. I think it was I was losing track of days. Friday, Saturday, they were
whatever.
They were having so much fun, man. I went over to the band. I was sitting over, near the visiting side, and I was like, guys, I love y'all, man. I fell in love with y'all last year. Y'all are always just so much fun. They wear the turkey heads for turnovers on top of their heads. And
was that A&M?
Yeah, A&M. They wear literal stuffed turkey heads on the top of their for turnovers with Buzz Williams. And
I'm going to leave that one alone.
If that's not cultish, that is not cultish. I don't know.
You're not wrong.
We sacrifice a turkey head beforehand, and then we stuff it, and then we wear it on our head. Why? Because it's a basketball game. Duh.
Look, a lot of people think a lot of these schools are called like A&M people love their school. Anytime you got an ag and engineering program as strong as Auburn or A&M or Mississippi State, that just pulls people in like it's a magnet. But basketball wise, them coming to Memphis, they're not going to draw people.
No.
And Alabama,
Houston might.
Let me tell you something. Alabama, the campus, Tuscaloosa, is 3.5 hours from Memphis. That's with traffic. It's an easy trip. There are a lot of Alabama people, a lot of Auburn people in Memphis. Yeah. And they'll pull for UAB just because of that rivalry. And Gene Bartow, the 4 years – he got more out of being at Memphis for 4 years than any coach has ever done in 4 years. He is still posthumously, rest his soul, loved in Memphis. And look, you know what? The committee, they blew it this year. They completely and Kentucky has no business being the 3 seed. Mitch, answer this. You are who you are at this point in the season. You're not going to change. Now, they can outscore people, but they don't play defense.
Well, it's going to bite them in the butt. Coach Cal said something, I think it was Sunday. He said that he was going to make another tweak and maybe start both 7-footers at the same time. I'm like, if you want to start both 7-footers, that's whatever, but you're not going to score a lot of points. You're just not. I mean, I don't – you are who you are in the season. So that's why when I filled up my bracket, I did. You
did your bracket?
I did. I have my bracket done. As of right now, I've got Auburn winning the national championship. I love this Auburn team. I love how complete they are. I love what Bruce Pearl has done with them. I've got Mississippi State playing in the Elite Eight, losing eventually. I have to look at the exact brackets, but I've got Mississippi State in the Elite Eight. I've got UConn losing early to. Oh gosh, let me look. Don't have the bracket pulled up.
I'm looking at it now. UConn plays Stetson. And then FAU plays Northwestern, so that's going to be probably.
I think I had UConn losing to FAU because I watched that FAU team. Man,
I've seen them play. Yeah,
Dusty May's stupid, man. He is a darn good basketball coach. He gets the most out of his players.
So you got UConn going down to FAU. Wow, that's big.
I've got UConn losing.
I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can buy that.
You don't want to put some money on it, Brenden?
No, not that one.
How about a six pack of crystals, Brenden?
Oh yeah. See,
but you know what sucks about living in Ocala?
Everything.
It's a great city, but they don't have crystal down there, and they don't have crystal. Do they have crystal burgers? They do in Ocala.
Yeah. I mean, they're in Florida. I don't know if there's. I thought there was, but I don't know. I can't eat them. They hurt me.
But I was going to say, be honest. When was the last time you had a steamer pack? I mean,
I don't know.
I don't care. Usually when you're pretty liquored up at 3 a.m, it's when you hit crystals. You know you're a junkie when you hit them sober for lunch. I mean, that's
hungover.
Let me read a little. I'm going to read
straight hangover.
I'm going to tell you what, one of my favorite people, Doug Dean, who's he's a team member, one of our founding members on this show, like Mitch is. He put some great, and I'll just paraphrase it because, as Niedermeyer said when addressing the charges against Delta Tau Delta in Animal House at the Interfraternity Council meeting, the decorum prohibits me reading, but I'll do my best. So he says, duck the selection committee, making Auburn a 4 seed with the toughest region. UConn and that AU game in Boston with 18,000 Huskies and 2,000 Auburn fans. Greg Burns should explain this bull split. Bama gets the easiest region with North Carolina. I agree. You know, and there is a hatred by this cabal of bitter, old, rotten people that smell like mothballs, because that's the last time they were relevant when they put their clothes on, because they have mothball smell around them. They don't like Bruce Pearl, and I'm sick of this because he allegedly turned in a coach at Illinois when he was on the staff with Dr. Tom Davis at Iowa. So what? Okay. Oh, there's an honor among thieves. Oh no, if he did what he did. Okay. I know at Tennessee. Oh my God. You know, he was out of town. He screwed up. There was a player, I think it was Aaron Kraft, who went on to play for Ohio State. I know his neighbors that live across the fence from him in Knoxville. They told me, they said he screwed up. They went over to his house, cooked burgers, and he lied when he was asked about it. And that's what he screwed up on. Otherwise, he probably would have been suspended for 5 games. But you know what? Find me a Tennessee fan that wouldn't take Bruce Pearl back in a heartbeat. Find me people that love a school, and there has never been in Auburn history a fundraiser like Bruce Pearl. I mean, love the guy. His players love him, and I hope they win it all. And I mean, and just I hope that committee, they have an agenda. You got to keep your personal politics and dislikes of people out of it, or you have no damn business being on the committee. Shame on these people. And they didn't just screw it, but it's what they did. Greg Byrne, what planet are you from? Come on, go ahead.
You know, guys, and I have to get off here in a few minutes here, but I do want to say, being around.
Wait a minute, this is fun.
I gotta get to work, y'all. I gotta hop on the full time. But you know, one thing that I did notice this weekend in Nashville is how Craig Sankey is slowly killing college athletics. I used to be a Craig Sankey fan, but
it's Craig.
Craig Sankey.
You call him Craig? Okay.
Commissioner Sankey. So Commissioner Sankey, I mean, his stance on basketball, is stupid. Taking away opportunities. He wants to take away opportunities from UAB and Indiana State, take away automatic bids from these non-Power 2 conferences to give to more SEC teams. Guys, I'm going to be honest with you. As much as I would love to cover Ole Miss in the NCAA tournament or LSU, they would not be fun to have either one of those teams in the NCAA tournament this year. It just wouldn't. And really, truthfully, guys, to be honest with you, Indiana State deserved to be in the NCAA tournament over half the teams that would let in on the last 8 side of this. Because Indiana State, man, look what the record is. Look at who they beat. You're going to punish them because they lost. They had a bad game in the conference championship game. I'm just not a fan of what Commissioner Sankey and the Big Ten are doing. I wish, break off football, let football do its own thing, but leave alone basketball, leave alone baseball, and let those entities do its own thing, because the NCAA tournament, we should not be expanding this tournament. We should not be adding more teams to it. We should not be taking automatic qualifiers, because the NCAA tournament, y'all, is beautiful. It is the best, purest way how to find a true national champions. You've got 68 teams with the same shot. Everybody has the same opportunity to go out there and win a national championship. 68 teams over a 3-week period have the chance to go compete for a national championship. And Craig Sankey wants to take away that from the smaller schools. And I just don't, you wouldn't, according to Commissioner Sankey, you wouldn't have had an FAU last year playing for Final Four. You wouldn't have had San Diego State playing for a national championship. Butler competing for a national championship in 2010. So, to me, Commissioner Sankey needs to take a step back. I wish we could bring back the days of Mike's Live. I wish with the SEC could go back to the original 12. I wish the Big 12 was still the Big 12 or the Big 8. I wish the Pac-12 was still around. The ACC was still the ACC. Adding Stanford and Cal and SMU. My dad and I were talking about this on the way down to Nashville. We don't even know who the hell is going to be in the ACC next year. I mean, you're looking at Stanford, Cal, and SMU adding to the ACC. That doesn't make any lick of sense. I wish Memphis would get in the conference with maybe the Sun Belt with an emphasis on better football home games. I mean, Memphis is having to play next year in football. Rice, North Texas, Charlotte. Those games don't really mean much. And if you were Memphis, wouldn't you much rather be in the Sun Belt where you're playing better basketball competition, where you're playing football that is playing Arkansas State, Southern Miss, let's see here, App State, Coastal Carolina, Marshall, teams that you have a geographical rivalry to that you were playing in the old Conference USA, maybe even add Western Kentucky to that mix. So I firsthand witnessed this weekend, how upset, how disappointing Commissioner Sankey and Jim, whatever the commissioner of the Big Ten's name is, how disappointing I am in those guys trying to ruin college athletics for the rest of us, because what makes college athletics so special, guys, is the regional rivalries that we have. And the thing about it is, adding Texas and Oklahoma and Mizzou and A&M was great. That's going to add to the level of competition. But really, truthfully, guys, when let's say Mississippi State goes play Texas this year in football, I'm not going to have any ties to that game whatsoever compared to when Mississippi State plays Arkansas or goes to play Florida or goes to play South Carolina. It's just not that those ties. And next year for the SEC tournament, we're going to have 4 games on Wednesday for the bottom 8 teams. It's just not. It's not exciting. It's just not. College athletics right now, Commissioner Sankey, the Big Ten commissioner, I know that we probably can't fire him, and that's fine. But there has to be somebody in another back room, an AD with a backbone. Maybe it's, Mitch Barnhart or Zach Selman or somebody like that with a backbone and says, hey, John Cohen could be that guy and says, hey, look, enough is enough. And we got to chill this thing out, because expanding the college football playoffs to 14 teams, what's the point? Like, I get 12, I understand 8. But 14, what's the point? What's the point of adding 14?
Money.
Yeah, money is. There's a great Roman proverb. Money is like salt water. The more you drink of it, the more you got to have it. And I'm with you. I love this tournament because I love to see every school feel like they have a chance. And you can say realistically, no, they don't. Well, I'm in sales. I don't believe in being realistic. I believe I'm going to get every sale I go after.
Yeah.
You know what? You better believe that. You better believe it. And I don't like this. I don't like this narrative from 6 multinational corporations on 3 city blocks in New York that from the time you wake up in the morning till your time your head hits the pillow or you pass out drunk, they want to tell you what to think and how to think and when to do it. I mean, let's go back to the free market. Let's let the free market. Look, as an SEC guy, I didn't want to see Kentucky get beat by St. Peter's. But that was pretty cool for the average fan out there. It sucked for Kentucky. Shouldn't have happened. But that's what people are talking about right now. And Mitch, let me just read you Doug Dean's Final 4 real quick. Auburn, Arizona, Wisconsin, and Creighton. And he's got Auburn beating Wisconsin for the national championship. Wouldn't that be
I have
wild?
Auburn beating Creighton. I have Auburn beating Creighton. I love.
So what's your Final 4?
Give me your Final 4, Mitch.
Hold on, I screenshot it. Let me pull it up on my phone.
And hey, Brenden, if you would put up Doug Dean's Final 4. I love that. Auburn, Arizona, Creighton, Wisconsin.
I have Auburn, Arizona, Houston, and Creighton. Auburn beating Creighton in the national championship. So me and Doug are like, we got three out of the 4. I kind of like my company with Doug Dean now.
Look, you
makes me feel better.
Here's the thing. When you pick these games, I pick stocks. I look for deep discount value. I look at trends. I look at 200-day moving averages. I look at net rankings, offense and defense. The exact opposite of what the selection committee did. They didn't look at anything. They were told what to do by somebody more powerful than them, TV executives, And that's what they did. Okay. But the tournament and life, karma, have a way of winning out. Mitch, unbelievable what you are doing. I am so damn impressed. And Brenden, you got to love this guy. 27 years old, works his ass off. You went to every game at the SEC tournament. You went to every press conference. You weren't afraid to ask questions. You made all kinds of contacts and relationships. Remember, get their card first before you give them yours. Then you control that relationship. Rule number one, Barry Blackburn told me about in sales or anything like that. Get their card first. Give out 5 of your cards every day. 2 of the people will probably keep them. 2 of them will probably give them to somebody else. One of them they might throw away. You never know. But you're going to miss 1,000% of the shots that you never take. Mitch, let them know how they can follow you. Love having you on this show.
Yeah, guys, thank y'all for having me. TheMitchDavisShow.com, MitchDavis_8 on Twitter, and The Mitch Davis Show on Spotify, on Apple, all those kind of places. So check it out. I'm going to be in Memphis on Thursday for the open practices with Texas A&M. And then, of course, all the action in the 901 starts on Fridays. So I'll be covering
let's meet up.
What was your Final Four again? I didn't hear the
let's see here. It is, as of right now, Auburn, Arizona, Houston, and Creighton, with Auburn beating Creighton in the national championship game. So that's as of right now, and they'll probably change before Thursday. But that's where we're going with this. So thank y'all so much. Y'all have a great day. I appreciate y'all.
Hell yeah. Right. You do too, Mitch. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitch.
Yancey Porter ought to be on here with us
not yet.
In just a moment.
They're not here yet, but I was just curious because I was looking at the brackets with Mitch. I got the app and, March Madness Live app, which is not too bad this year. Look at the brackets, and it's just I was talking to you this about before at the beginning of the show. It's just so bizarre to me. I mean, besides location and regional and everything else, but when you just look at Florida loses in the SEC tournament to Auburn, but they get a bye. Florida's path to the at least Sweet 16 or to the Elite Eight. It's not too bad because Kentucky's not that good, and they kind of got their number. They played the winner of Marquette and Western Kentucky after the bye.
Yeah,
and they lost to Auburn. But Auburn starts out with Yale. No bye. Yeah. They get, and they got a much more difficult path in a sense that you get an extra game. So I don't know. It's just sort of baffling to me. Not that, look, I'm happy.
Well, wait,
Florida,
you're talking about buys.
Yeah.
Well, Florida play. What day does Florida open up?
So Florida doesn't play. Let's see. The app.
Are they Thursday or Friday?
I'm looking right now. The app's not so super functional when you open up the deal. So it says first round is 321 and 322. So they don't play. They don't have it listed.
See, they take 32 teams play Thursday and 32 play Friday.
Right, exactly. But then Florida's got. They don't have their matchup because they've got Florida.
Ain't no buys. That's
not a buy, but I'm saying Florida gets
an extra day of rest.
Extra day of rest. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's a.
But they got screwed in a lot. Yeah. They need. Let's see. Tennessee plays St. Peter's, then Texas doesn't play that day, and then Akron, Creighton, Oregon, South Carolina. That's a no-brainer. But location there. Where are they playing that game?
Well,
Kansas, Stanford, Gonzaga, McNeese. Okay, so that whole division. All right. It's just gets to a lot of this stuff to me comes down to endurance and what you got. Look, you come off a pretty nasty SEC tournament. You come off a pretty, you got a bad injury. It's really just getting through this gauntlet. But I think I'd rather have Florida's chances on that schedule than I would Auburn, and I think I think Auburn goes and wins the whole SEC tournament, and I don't know.
Well, Florida's playing in Indianapolis.
Yeah,
so
there'll be nobody there.
There'll be people there, but what the committee is supposed to do, and I'm
curious. But I'm saying Gators are. That's a long way to travel. They're not going to have as big as.
Yeah, and I will say this: Yancey Porter supposed to join us here in just a moment from Rebel Yell Hotline, and I like that. Look, the committee, you can't reward teams that aren't worth being rewarded. But when you take a team that should be like a 3 or a 2, that winning the conference tournament has to matter. Okay,
Well,
because here's why.
And I think it needs to matter in both in football, baseball. I mean, all the way down the line, because I think it makes it such a huge difference, especially in football.
Yeah, but in the fact that they give an automatic NCAA bid to the tournament winner, they don't give it automatically to the regular season champion, but they give it automatically to the tournament winner. Then, damn it, shame on the committee for not paying attention. In this case, it helped Auburn, but it could have helped Florida. And had Florida won it, they would have won 4 games in 4 days. That should have bumped their seeding up. I'm agnostic about this stuff. I want the SEC teams to be in there in the best position they can be, done the right way. I don't want to see somebody get screwed, but when your own people, there's a point where you look, if you're coaching your kids' teams when they're young, you got to be careful as a parent not to play mommy ball and daddy ball. Keep politics out of it. Stay out of politics at work. Stay in production. And I'm talking about the politics of who likes who and who does this and that. I'm not talking about Republican, Democrat, because that's just a dump anyway. I'm talking about doing things right. And put people on these committees that know what they're talking about, that know. I mean, Dr. Charles McClellan, commissioner of the Southwest Athletic Conference. I don't know him, but, give a better reason when you've got teams that are ranked in the top 4 and 5 in the net and the Palmer, all we hear about is ESPN just drives it down your throat from the first game. Bracketology. It means nothing.
Nothing.
It means nothing. Look, UConn will have Secret Service protection throughout this tournament. And you're going to have to beat them and the refs and the politics of the TV people.
It's the same reason when you turn on any network morning show that it's geared completely towards, living in New York, living in these same areas. Yeah. Because that's their demo, right? So they're after that greater period. So it's like, you watch a morning show that literally has nothing to do with, with your area or what's happening. So it's like the center of the universe is there. And I think that's, what we see, because we see ratings drive all of our, all the decisions, because it's all money. It's like, and I think that's, that is why I do what I do now. And that's why you do what you do now, is that you want to give an opportunity to take a break from ESPN national news, that you want to talk hyper local, that you want to get in and talk to the people that we talk to on this show all the time, that people that cover the beat, that's there, that understand, there is a world outside of the Northeast and their ratings.
Well, I remember they had the sports reporters on Sunday mornings,
and that's ESPN. Where they make that's where the decisions are made. And that's my point. That's where that's the brain of this whole thing, and I think that's what we find subject to.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because you've got a bunch of people in Boston and New York that, for the most part, grew up playing stickball, and they most of them in these big cities, they ride the subway, they don't drive. They don't have a truck. When I had an opportunity to I had an opportunity right out of college to live in New York and work for CBS and ESPN for 6-month internships. I didn't do it because there weren't any horses up there other than the carriages in Central Park. There weren't any pickup trucks and gun racks in those pickup trucks. I didn't feel like, I'm from the South. I've traveled all over this country and all over the world. I wouldn't swap being where I'm from for anything. I'm going to tell you something. We need to put people in man camp. Learn how to clean a fish, gut a deer, clean a duck, split firewood, build a fire, change a tire, and open the door for ladies and stand up at the table when ladies sit down and when they leave. How about that? What a novel idea. I'm going to tell you something. Brenden, you are right. you got these morning show people that live in New York. They're so insulated from the rest of the country, and they try to talk about sports. I mean, give me a break. The committee blew it. But this isn't the first time they've done it.
No,
but
and it's been happening. I mean, it's this time of year, whether it's football or whether it's basketball or whatever it is. It's like somebody is getting screwed because clearly the system is flawed. But in the flaws of the whole thing is where this whole thing exists. That's where it's always existed. And I think what you see with adding having 14 playoff games, a 14 team, excuse me. Then
why two more?
Yeah, now you have 2 more, right? Yeah. So now, but then you start to think about the connection of that entire time of year in a lot of ways. It's like, well, remember we used to have the Weed Whacker Bowl and all all these different no-name bowl games. Why did we have those? Because of the money, right? Because the universities got that big payout to end up at the Rack of Ribs Bowl. Yeah.
Let me throw this at you. My friend Harold Grader is executive vice president of the AutoZone Liberty Bowl in Memphis. The last 22 years, they've averaged around $58,000 a year at the Liberty Bowl. Keep them around. They're probably the 7th best bowl. They've been around a long time. You know what they used to do back when there weren't all these 44 bowls like there are now? They were brilliant. ABC Monday Night Football. They were the following Monday, the week after the NFL regular season ended. So you had a built-in audience already staged, ready to go. The bowl games that are not drawing anybody and are being subsidized by the government or whatever, eliminate them. We don't need them. You don't reward people. Look, Brenden, if your daughter were a freshman at the University of Florida, and I'm sure she's very smart, knowing you and your dad and your mom was very smart, and she worked hard and got a 4.0 her first semester, and her roommate was the life of the party and got a 1.0. Well, let's say your daughter comes home and I got my grades. I thought I got a 4.0. Well, the way it works now, honey, is we took your roommate who went out every night and didn't study, their 1.0. We added it into your 4.0, and the two of y'all have a 2.5. That's the kind of crap we've got to eliminate. You know what? Sua sponte. You know what that means in Latin, the translation?
I don't.
Of your own accord, of your own volition. And that's, hang around people who believe in creeds like that. And what the problem is, we don't have enough sports writers like your dad out there now. Franz Beard. I mean, you pick them. Tony Barnhart. They're writing about what matters. And you know what? You can agree to disagree with people. Doesn't mean you can't speak to them. But we got to stop getting away from it. But how dare, if anybody were to call on one of these ESPN shows and rip into ESPN or any of the TV people about what they do is purely, and I understand it, but is it about competition? Last year, I remember a few people telling me, this is bad for TV, having Florida Atlantic and San Diego State in the Final Four. I'm like, who the hell says that? It's the people that live in New York, that spend their weekends out in the Hamptons or in Hyannisport or Cape Cod or Martha's Vineyard. I don't really care about those people. I don't want to. I mean, that's fine if you like. They're a bunch of hypocrites.
Rodney Orr checking in right here. Yeah. This came in. Hey, Rodney, how are you?
This man ain't no hypocrite. This man is as real as it gets. Proud native son.
How are you?
Mobile, Alabama, Corpus Christi, Rodney Orr. How are you doing, man? We're talking about that selection committee and what's going on and just the politics of ESPN and the TV networks, how these people that don't drive, that take the subway, that live this fantasy life, try to act like they relate to the rest of America when it comes to college football, when it comes to anything. And now you see with the selection committee, you got Auburn and Alabama and UAB. Like Kevin Skarbinski said yesterday, Rodney, we can't even get Alabama and UAB together in the same building in the state of Alabama. But by God, they're going to be sharing practice time in Spokane, Washington. The humanity of it all, Rodney, make some sense out of it.
I can't.
It's not possible.
Yeah. No, I mean, haven't put a lot. It is kind of crazy, but at the same time, I don't know what all went into it. I honestly, there's so many different things on my plate that to be honest with you, that's kind of the last thing I've thought about. So I would probably be not the best person to ask that.
No, but let me ask you this about football right now. Spring practice is underway at Alabama. Kalen DeBoer's first year. He kept a few guys. Let's go back over it just to refresh people, because I got a question here from somebody that texted me. Who did Kalen DeBoer keep? I know he kept Freddie Roach. Who was the other coach that he kept from the previous staff?
Yeah, Robert Gillespie, the running backs coach. So, yeah, those two were holdovers. And then, of course, he brought most of his staff from Washington on the offensive side. And then, of course, Ryan Grubb left along with Scott Huff, the offensive line coach. So, those guys left, went to Seattle. But he still has basically, guys that on that side of the ball that he's coached with, and defensively. He's coached with Kane Womack, too. So, yeah. He's pretty familiar with most of his staff, but those were the two holdovers, Freddie Roach on the defensive line and Robert Gillespie at running backs.
You have been so far ahead of the curve, and this is Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider, folks, only $48 a year on the May Veterinary Clinic, Tuscaloosa and Northport since 1964. 2 locations, open every day, Sundays, drop off and pick up only 3 to 5 p.m., Camp May Veterinary Clinic. They have an outdoor pool and even have connecting cat condos. And Rodney, you've written a great book, Bigger Than Bama. QR code is up on the screen. We'll keep it up there. You're a hell of a man, and you know Alabama. You understand the big picture of what happens in Tuscaloosa reverberates around the country. Let's talk about the guys coming and going. Do you feel like I do that as soon as spring practice is over, that's another mess you got to deal with? How many of your guys are going to hit the portal the first week of May? Isn't it? Is anything being done? And can also, Rodney, can you clarify something? If you transfer the first time, you're eligible immediately, unless you're a graduate. But if you want to transfer the second time, did the courts put a temporary restraining order or something that said instead of you the second time you transfer, you got to sit for a year? Did they come out and say you can transfer as much as you want every year? What's the latest on that mess?
They don't have any rules.
So remember they had the deal temporarily. It was going to be the second time. So,
right.
This is.
Yeah, no, it's. I don't think they're going to stop anyone if they want to transfer a second time. I mean, not right now. Now it may eventually happen. Of course, like you said, it used to be. Well, we know how it used to be, but then in recent times with the portal, you got the one transfer, and then the other one you had to sit out if you wanted to take a second transfer. You had to sit out a year, but that really hasn't been enforced, and so I think that's pretty weak right now. But the spring portal opens. I think it actually, Rob. I think it actually opens like the Monday after Alabama's A-Day game. Mid-April sometime. I'm expecting some activity. Definitely expecting some activity, not at just Alabama, obviously, but around the country.
Well, as the late legendary voice of the Mississippi State Bulldogs, Jack Crystal, would say, there's movement in the aisles here in Scott Field in Starkville, Mississippi. Remember him, Rodney?
I do remember him. Yeah, he was great. I think a lot of that movement. I don't mean to offend Mississippi State people, but people flooding out of that stadium. Rob,
I know.
I remember, Rob, that I covered the 1986. Just a little throwback here. You'll like this one, Rob.
Yeah.
I covered the 1986 Auburn Mississippi State game at Scott Field. I mean, that was as high as I think they've ever been.
I was there.
Not to that point, obviously,
Yeah.
but they were sky high, Rocky Felker and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
I think Brent Fullwood took the first play about 88 yards, and it was
You're
over.
correct, sir. Rodney, that was a crazy game, wasn't it? I mean, Scott Field, and remember Don Hamilton was the quarterback for Mississippi
He was from
State?
Hamilton. Don, I know who you're talking about, but yeah, Don Smith. He was from Hamilton, Mississippi.
Yeah, but not Don Cornelius, but Don Smith. Yeah, Don Smith from
Yeah.
Hamilton. Yeah, but remember he made that long run at Neyland Stadium up in Knoxville.
Won the game.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
Rodney,
he was a great guy. He was a great kid. You know, after the game, I was in the Auburn. I guess all that was left was Pat Dye was putting on his shoes and socks, and Paul Feinbaum was standing there. I'll never forget. But anyway, he was that day. Penn State could come to Tuscaloosa in a big matchup. Penn State was like number 2, and Alabama was like number 4, and Penn State dominated 23-3. And I just remember Dye looking up at Paul Feinbaum and saying, "Paul, you put the hex on Bama." I love it because Feinbaum had written an article saying that Penn State was basically Notre Dame in white, because Notre Dame obviously wasn't very good that year.
Yeah.
But anyway, long story short, I asked Coach Dye, I said, "Coach," I said, "in the Mississippi State locker room, they're saying Brent Fullwood is a better running back than Bo Jackson." And he said, "Well, he probably is. Bo's not a running back. He's a center fielder." So,
I remember that game quite well. 35-6, the Tigers got the win. And I met my parents, literally had flown back. They'd been in Europe for 3 weeks. I met them in Starkville that night for the game, drove back with some friends, stopped in Tuscaloosa at about 2:30 that morning at guess where? Crystal. I got a box of grenades. Got a box of grenades with shrapnel. That's Crystal Burgers with onions, and a box of fuses, French fries, and a bowl of mud, some chili. But Rodney, I didn't know that you had covered. And Buddy Martin's on here, GatorbackMedia.com, legendary, one of the original skywriters in the SEC. And I love talking about these great games from the past, and also several people, and I'm included, Rodney. I wish we could get your picture up here when you're on, because, hell, you're a good-looking guy. We see you on TV all the time, WVUA TV 23, Tider Insider TV Tuesday nights at 6:30 with you and Gary Harris. But love having you on here. But, Rodney, I got to say, I did not know you were a beat writer. Who were you writing for?
No. I worked at a TV station in Jackson.
Okay.
And actually, I covered and I'm sure Buddy will remember this game. It might have been the same year. Can't remember. Rocky Felker's first year, I'm pretty sure it was Florida. Kerwin Bell brought Florida to Scott Field, and Mississippi State pulled off an upset. I don't remember if that was the same year or not, but I remember Mississippi State pulled off an upset.
Yeah. Now, good evening to you. How you doing, Rodney?
Well.
Nice talking to you, and
You
Rob
too.
and Brenden. Yeah,
Morning.
I was living in New York at the time, so I didn't really cover that game, but I do remember it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mississippi State was a tough out a lot of times those days for Florida,
Yeah.
And and even Spurrier had his moments. But yeah, so I'm glad I got you on here, Rodney, because I want to clear up some history while I'm at it. If I may, Rob, just jump in.
Absolutely.
I was thinking about Keith Dunham's book,
Yes.
The Missing Ring. Okay. And I know you know that story, Rodney, and I've forgotten the year because all the years run together after that.
66.
66 was the same year that Utah won the national championship, beat Kentucky in basketball, the same year that Steve Spurrier won the Heisman Trophy, and I thought it was. But the big deal is that Alabama had one of its greatest teams that did not get the national championship because the polls decided that then, and most of the polls were run by people from up north and out west and east, and so somebody made a value judgment apparently that that the team that was racist shouldn't be a national champion, and so Browne got screwed out of the ring. But I think it's an interesting concept because I was thinking back about this, guys, that looking at Florida's history, there were a couple of missing rings from Florida for different reasons too. So you got to ask the question: is it right for somebody to say, "Well, you don't deserve to win the national championship," any more than you do to say you shouldn't win the Heisman Trophy? I get O.J. Simpson, but Bush should never have lost his. Anyway, it's moral judgments, Rob, that come into play like that. I'm not a big fan of.
Yeah, I'm not either. Rodney and Yancey Porter is going to join us here now, Rebel Yell Hotline over in Oxford. I got to say, I want to get Keith Donovan on this show in a big way, Rodney, because he's the historian of ESPN college football now. But his voice, it's kind of, when you watch him on these documentaries, y'all are all old enough to remember. Y'all remember an actor who was a great voice, Hal Holbrook?
I remember the name.
Yeah, famous actor. Yeah.
Incredible voice. He played Mark Twain. You probably saw Rodney. He narrated the Lewis and Clark Trail movies and narratives on National Geographic. Keith Donovan has a way of telling stories that makes you hang on every word. And and he was right though. That the South has never let go of what happened when Alabama went to the Rose Bowl and won that game. It wasn't just a victory for Alabama; it was for all of the South. And the South, like a pit bull putting its teeth into the hide of an animal, they've never let go, and that's why it's so personal. Don't you agree, Rodney? In the South, and I'll Yancey come in here in a second, but it's so personal with us in the South, our teams, especially college football.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I think it's obviously, what makes certainly the root of it could be that what you're referring to, and I actually mentioned that in my book about what that win meant for the South.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of. You talk about that 1966 team. Alabama had won it in 64 and 65. That would have been a three-peat. They went 11-0, and they felt like they got screwed out of that national championship. Obviously, Michigan State and Notre Dame had tied in their game that year, and they were kind of co-champions, I think, as I recall, depending on the poll.
That's correct.
Yeah.
They were.
Yeah. So but I'll tell you, just kind of moving on to another controversial. I know you guys remember this. It's not. I guess you could say it's the SEC now. Certainly wasn't then, but when Texas and Arkansas played in 1969.
Yeah.
If you remember, Richard Nixon, who was the president, declared that the winner of the game would be the national champion. And Joe Paterno, he wasn't too happy about that. He had an undefeated team at Penn State, if you remember. And he kind of had a great quote. I don't know if you remember this or not, but I guess it's okay to tell this. But he was asked, Joe Paterno was asked how he felt about, being kind of what he felt like screwed out of the national championship, and that the president of the United States would actually insert himself in a position to make that declaration that the winner would be the national champion. And he said, they asked him, what would you say to Richard Nixon if you had a chance? And he said, I would tell him the same thing that the little 80-year-old woman told the priest when she went to confession, or not the 80-year-old, the lady who went to the priest to talk to him about getting on birth control. And that is, when he advised her not to, she said, play at the game, make of the rules, right? So, so I thought that was a classic quote from Joe Paterno.
Yeah, and Yancey Porter jumping here, Rebel Yell Hotline. Catch it Monday nights, 6 p.m., Sports 56 WHBQ and Super Talk, Mississippi. And Yancey, I figured you got caught in a meeting or something like that, but we're talking a little college football, little history and all like that. We had a lot of heavy dose of basketball in the first part of the show, but jump in this conversation and talk college football with us. If I have to twist your arm, I will.
Well, I mean, we're going back to the 1960s, so that was before my time, but obviously that was a good decade for the Rebels, the 50s and the 60s. With Johnny Bald, it was a shame that Ole Miss and Alabama's, listening to the Alabama teams, did not play but a couple times during that era. So that I think that would be one thing that jumps out to me. Rodney, I don't know about you.
Rodney? Hopefully we didn't lose Rodney. Okay, yeah. Rodney, are you still with us? We may have lost him.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yancey was just asking you a question. I just didn't know if you heard it.
Yeah, I lost you for a second. What was the question?
Yeah, you were going back to the '60s and talking about the Alabama teams and things of that nature. And I know that Archie Manning in the infamous game there where they had total yardage, but during the Vault and Bear days, Ole Miss and Alabama didn't face each other but a couple times for about a 25-year period. I just thought it was a shame that the two powerhouse programs out of the SEC in that era did not face each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're right. And there was I watched that game actually, 33-32. And I've talked to Scott Hunter about that 69 game a lot. And he's told me this more than once. He said, the crazy thing is, he said Legion Field held maybe 70,000 at the time. And he said, I've had 250,000 people tell me they were there.
Yeah.
But no, that was, and if you remember the next year, it was a hyped up game, the rematch, and Scott Hunter was hurt, and Ole Miss intercepted on the first possession, and it was a blowout. I think it was like 48-23 or something like that. That was one of the all-time great, even though it wasn't a great Alabama team, that was one of the all-time great
Buddy
games.
Martin, I remember as a kid watching that at LV and Mary Sharp's house in East Memphis off of Briarview as a kid on a Saturday night. We all got together, had a cookout at their house, and watched that game on the color TV. And we were all in the den on the floor and hanging on. And I think LV went to Alabama and Mary went to Ole Miss. They were friends of our family. And God, it was wild. I mean, their marriage survived it, but it was a hell of a night. Buddy Martin, you remember these great games.
Well, you dated your show. You said watch the color TV. I mean, not many people
say that.
But people think it's always been in color. Yeah,
buddy, I got a question for you.
Yeah,
Darren, how involved is Florida right now in spring practice? Where are they right now?
Well, there's a little bit of a drop off because they had spring break. They're really early on their first couple of days. And,
what is quarterback? What does the quarterback situation look like right now?
Well, they got their quarterback from last year. He's back, but the young guy coming in, I'm in love with. I just think there's some superb player. Just what little I made in my declaration already on Lagway said, look, people said you can't make a judgment, but you just watched him on video and he's in practice and you haven't even talked to him. I said, the hell I can't. I said, look, in romance, we believe in love at first sight, don't we? I've seen enough quarterbacks in Florida to kind of know what I like. I like the way he walks on the field. I like the way he looks in his uniform. I like the way he throws the ball. I like his composure. He looks like a quarterback and a championship quarterback, and I'll make that statement now. This guy is something really, really, really special, and I look forward to it. Now, no, they got the guy they need there back. He obviously is their QB, and but Lagway will play in every game. So it's early on now, too early to call. I've already called it. You're the quarterback of the future. If they can get past this brutal year, what some are calling the hardest schedule in college football history, I don't know if I go that far, but it's a tough one. And there's no let up, especially the back half, and they end up the season with Ole Miss there. So, just let me jump in real fast. Thanks for the question. Robin, you mentioned color TV. Context for old guys is important because people, like I used to joke, people think that all the sports started in '89 with the ESPN. And that's the year they started. And there was some history prior to that. And somebody mentioned, I think Rodney mentioned, Texas, Arkansas, those were the heydays, man, of college football. Who knew they would become SEC teams one day? But, those were great games. I became a bit of a Texas fan back in those days, and later actually got a chance to go out to Austin a couple of times and to cover some games and meet some people. And I loved Texas, but they don't cross my radar very often. And now finally we get Texas. So, Rob, you and I are doing a show Friday on this.
Yeah.
I've got a piece as soon as Brenden gets it up on the culture, the cowboy culture taking over the Southern gentlemen of in the SEC. How will that go? Because as you said, and you're quoted in this piece, Rob, is that they'll have a big billboard in Dallas that says, or Austin that says, Texas welcomes the SEC. Not the other way around. So.
Yeah,
He's telling the truth.
Well, Rodney, think about that episode of the Beverly Hillbillies when Uncle Jed was running for mayor of Beverly Hills, and Jethro had the plane flying around with the big banner. It said in all caps, Jethro Bodine says in the bottom right-hand corner, vote Jed Clampett. Rodney and Yancey and Buddy and Brenden, this is absolutely awesome having all y'all on here together. Every time Buddy comes on here, it's so cool because his connection and his memory and his mental acumen are off the charts. And, Yancey, you referenced it a minute ago, the 50s and the 60s. My dad is a kid. He's listening right now. Grandbob, by the way, it is Tuesday, March 19th, 2024. He always says, put that date and the day of the show because sometimes I forget what day it is. But anyway.
Don't we all?
Yeah. And Yancey, you referenced that. As a kid, Dad used to sneak into Crump Stadium in Memphis. They would have double headers. Ole Miss would play, say, Memphis maybe, or Tennessee would play Mississippi State. But as a kid, he would sneak into Crump Stadium and always thought he was going to Ole Miss. And then he became an architect and wanted to go. And it was either LSU or Auburn. He ended up at Auburn. But, man, Yancey, your recollection of history, like Rodney's and Brendan's and Buddy's, is off the charts. And here it is, Ole Miss right now had their best season numbers-wise, 11 wins, regular season, in school history. Talk about that enthusiasm in Oxford right now. And by the way, we have the Vitamin Shop, Oxford and Olive Branch. Justin Ross will be on with us a few minutes tomorrow to talk about it out at the Regalia in Oxford. Check them out. Open Monday through Saturday, 9:30 a.m., 8 p.m., and Sundays, 10:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. You won't get the blank stare when you go in there. They know what they're talking about. Supplements, probiotics, pre-workout, active workout, and post-workout. The Vitamin Shop, Oxford and Olive Branch, Mississippi. But Yancey, let's talk about the Rebels, and then I want to go back to Rodney, and we'll bounce it around a few more minutes.
Yeah, spring practice opened up they've had 3 practices to date before spring break. Today is the first day the media will have a chance to view spring practice, and that's it. We get one day. They kind of switch things up this year. They're totally shutting down access for media and fans this year, unless you kind of know the direction that they are looking at for this year's team. But it's going to be a big spring. You've got 37 new players on the team. That's when you do 85 minus 37, that's a lot of new players. So anytime in the Lane Kiffin era, it's going to be a lot of turnover. But they return just about their 2 deep all across the field. So this is the most experience they brought back in the Kiffin era right now. They've got obviously the quarterback. The big question mark is who's going to fill Quinshon Judkins' shoes. As everybody knows, he transferred to Ohio State. They've got Riscano, a freshman running back from Texas that they're really high on. And I think that's going to be a big storyline this spring is how does he develop? Obviously they got Benton returning for Ole Miss, the 1-2 punch there that last year. And so they got to get that 2 punch, right? They've got the 1, now they need the 2. And then when you look at the offensive line, that was what really kind of cost them during that Georgia game last year when they had some injuries leading up to the game, and then they lost another 2 starting offensive linemen, and Ole Miss really got exposed that they didn't have the depth on the offensive line. So they bring back 4 of their 5 starters, but they added 4 starters from other schools, including 2 from Washington, which is I'm still a little curious why he didn't bring them over there to Alabama, but two starters there at Washington that started for 2 or 3 years for them off the top offensive line unit in Washington. So there's a lot of optimism that problem is going to be solved, but you never know until you get on the field. So there'll be a lot of eyes on that offensive line. And then defensively, they lose some cornerbacks and, replacing those guys, one that Rodney's familiar with there that comes over from Alabama. And then on the defensive line, they added, 3 all-SEC players in the portal there on that defensive line and returned the majority of their defensive line. So there's a lot of optimism. They're going to be really strong in that front 7.
Well, Rodney, Yancey points out the numbers. Let's do the same thing with Alabama. I love this conversation because you just cannot talk enough about college football. And you can catch, of course, Yancey Monday nights, 6 p.m., Sports 56, WHBQ Memphis, and Super Talk Mississippi, the Rebel Yell Hotline, Chuck Rounsville, the Ole Miss Spirit, Harry Harrison, Gary Darby, Gordon Ford when he's on there, but unbelievable content. It's must listen to content every week. Rodney, you do a great show, Tider Insider TV, Tuesday nights at 6:30. Let's talk a little about both sides real quick, and then Buddy will jump back in.
Yeah, you talking about Alabama's spring practice?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of like what Buddy said about Florida. They had 3 practices before spring break last week. And, I thought everything went extremely well, all the feedback we got. And again, now we're limited as well, too. We can't talk to coaches now. We do get those opportunities. And then what you didn't have under Saban. And,
yeah.
But we did get a 30-minute viewing period on one of the practices. I thought it was really high tempo. I thought they got in a ton of reps. I think that's really how his practices are designed. So I thought from all the feedback I've gotten, everyone I've spoken to that had opportunities to observe all 3 practices, I thought it went really, really well for the first week. But, now today, actually, Tuesday, they restart. They've got 12 practices left. So we'll see, but there's obviously some who are still questioning the quarterback situation. Milroe's obviously got a lot to learn, but all the other quarterbacks do as well, and he's got the experience. But they've got a really great room of quarterbacks. They've got to find and Yancey made this comment about he wondered why Alabama didn't take those Washington offensive linemen that that's a great point. I wondered the same thing. Because you're probably going to certainly look in the portal, maybe for an offensive tackle, in the spring when it opens in April. So we'll see there. But their wide receiver room, I think it has a chance to be really, really good. There's a true freshman. Remember this name, Caleb Odom, who actually Ole Miss recruited extremely hard. There was a time when people thought he might go there. He's about 6'5". He's 210 pounds. He was going to play kind of that Amari Niblack role as that H-back, but tight end type guy. But he's just so athletic. He's so good that they really like him as a wide receiver. He had a big first week. He was kind of the rave of the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, Kane Womack now here. Obviously, he's got Ole Miss ties as well with his dad. But, I think they should be really strong up front. That group looks great on the hoof. They have a lot of guys to work with up front. Obviously, you got to replace Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell on the outside, but they've got, I think I counted it, Rob. I think they have 7 guys that they're playing outside that were 5-star players coming out of high school. So
wow.
They got a lot of talent. Obviously Yancey mentioned Trey Amos, going to be a great player at Ole Miss. That was a big loss for Alabama at corner. Thought he could have been a great, great player for this team. But Damani Jackson's transferred in from USC. Jaleel Hurley's a returning guy that's been here. And then they signed 3 5-star corners in this last class. So all 5 of those guys were 5 stars coming out of high school. Keon Sabb transfers in from Michigan. he'll kind of take the place of Caleb Downs. So yeah, they did have some losses, but they've kind of got some guys that have the talent to be really good too.
Yeah, buddy, jump in here.
My head's still spinning. I'm still trying to figure out whether they have divisions anymore in the SEC. That's a subject that comes up a lot. We got 2 powerhouse programs coming aboard this fall, and we have a lot to learn about this. We got new names, new players. We used to be able to know every roster, every team. We don't even know the coaching staffs, but it's changing, hopefully for the better. It's funny, we had a conversation about Ole Miss, and either Lane Kiffin or Jackson Dart's name came up. There are some people think Jackson Dart might be one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the league. I don't know. And we know Lane Kiffin is just sitting and waiting in the bushes, and he'll probably spring on us and come to Dallas and SEC media days. But let me just say this about Ole Miss. Again, context for old guys, from old guys. We talked about Arkansas, Texas being the great era of college football. Ole Miss was a dominant team. People forget Johnny Vaught won 6 SEC titles. 6.
Yep.
He never gets mentioned among the greats. And by the way, did this guy Nick Saban, is he still in the league? I don't know if he is or not. But anyway, you got guys like that. Ole Miss has had rich football history, and now they're relevant in a big way. And I think it's going to be a fascinating year to see what happens in the West. So much turnover. So yeah, Ole Miss is a terrific program. Good to see them back again, and it's going to make the SEC better. But remember, just so you remember, if you're going out to Dallas or Austin and you want to ask for an Arnold Palmer, around there and up in Oklahoma, the drink is not an Arnold Palmer. You know what that is? Not like it's a Roy Rogers. Roy Rogers drink. That's what it's called. Roy Rogers up in Oklahoma. So yeah, times have changed. I'm hoping for the better. I just got to figure out how many playoff teams you're going to have eventually. 12, then 14, now 16. So, yeah, let's bring it on. We'll figure it out, I guess, day by day, and the wonderful game of college football. It will not be unscathed, but the new version of it, when the market settles in, and I told you this, Rob, a year ago, it's going to take a minute. When the market settles in a couple of years, we understand you're paying $1.2 million or whatever you're paying for a quarterback. By the way, didn't Justin Dart get a deal, NIL deal with an airline? Private jets, I believe he did.
Yeah,
so
Nicholas Harris, a local. It's basically where private planes wherever you charter. I say they're local, but they've kind of spread all throughout the Deep South now.
Yeah,
so yeah, he did.
Yeah, so times are changing, but when it all settles in, I'm hopeful the great game of college football will be what we hoped it would be. Maybe not the same, and that's okay. I just hope the change is better. I, as one who campaigned for a national playoff, and I campaigned 30 years ago, Rob, you know this, that they're going to condense it down to a super league with 16 teams, with 65 teams, whatever, and let them play it down. It's happening that before our very eyes. I hope I don't live to regret my dreams and hopes.
Well, I thought it was interesting, speaking of the playoffs, where the new deal that was cut that came out yesterday, that they can renegotiate after the 16th season if there's any more conference realignment or the playoffs format change. Mm-hmm. So they are leaving that window open, speaking of 16, to go. We all know it's going to go to 16 teams. I mean, it's going to happen. And so it looks like after the 26th season is when they're leaving that window open to go ahead and move it to 16 teams. So we're only going to look at about a 3-year run at this 12-team format. And I thought that was very interesting yesterday when that news came out.
Go back and look at the history of that, Rob. Look at the history of the NCAA basketball tournament.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How many did it used to be in 16, 32, 32, whatever. It's going to happen in football. Yeah. There won't be that many, but they're going to definitely have a bigger. It'll be, you'll say, well, take the top 25 or whatever. It's going to grow, and we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And listen, unbelievable conversation. Yancey Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline, Rodney Orr, Tider Insider. He's also got a great new book that'll resonate with you. Read it, Bigger Than Bama. I'm reading it right now. Buddy Martin's show every weeknight, 9 p.m. Eastern, live on YouTube. Brenden Martin, our executive producer, and everybody. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Don't ever doubt for 1 second. We live in the greatest country in the world. Just look around you. You're surrounded by the greatest people. We're all blessed. I love having Yancey and Rodney and Buddy on this show and Brenden, because you get it. Have a blessed day. You know, I believe in saying that. And every time I'm on here, I feel blessed because we have the best guests and sponsors and viewers on the planet. SEC, it is family. Ain't nothing like it anywhere. Got a great show in store for you tomorrow. But thanks, everybody, for participating in this show. We cannot do it without you. We're here to serve. So thank you. And as we say in the South, y'all have a good one.
Thank you, Ralph.
We'll see y'all tomorrow.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shoppe health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Sidelines with Rob Brown.